2015, an elite DFS Army Commando unit formed to bring high-level DFS strategy to the masses. Today, hated by DFS sharks and lineup sellers alike, they continue their quest to turn Joe into DFS pros.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Geeks Vegas Lines NFL podcast for Week 10 of the 2017 football season. My name is Kevin, aka the Fantasy Football Geek, and I will be taking you on a journey through this week's slate of games and looking at them from a Vegas Lines perspective, as we do every week here on the Geeks Vegas Lines podcast. I'm rolling solo today, so bear with me as we get underway here. This is a pretty exciting week. Last week went kind of like we thought it did. I think the best thing about last week was, at least for the DFS Army crew, was some of the Sunday notes where we identified T.Y. Hilton as one of the top plays of the slate, and a few different ones. But that's obviously that was the kicker, because he was the nuts play, and that was really cool. So a lot of our crew had a really good week last week, and we just want to keep it going. So let's just jump into it here, and I'm going to try to do this in reasonable time. So the first game of the week, we have the Vikings traveling to Washington to take on the Redskins. Vegas total on this game is 42.5 points, and the Vikings are a slight 1-point favorite in this game. Both of the team totals are really low here, and this game is interesting because both of these teams feature really, really solid secondary play and just quality defenses in general. I'm going to go through some of the numbers here. So obviously with the Vikings, their best player is Xavier Rhodes. He takes out the opposing team's best wide receiver. Luckily, I guess for Washington, in a sense, they don't have a best wide receiver. So that's actually going to negate Rhodes just a little bit in terms of his superpower. But the rest of the Vikings secondary isn't bad, and the Redskins secondary is very, very good as well. As a matter of fact, all around, I think the Redskins might have the best secondary in the league, led by Josh Norman. So it's really got me off both of these passing games. Both of these teams are fairly decent against the run, with the Vikings coming in at number 4 overall, so really, really good. And the Redskins at a respectable 13th overall. So if you're going to attack the Redskins, you generally attack them via the run and via the tight end, where they are particularly considered a funnel tight end defense. Hello, Kyle Rudolph. That's your play in this game. Kyle Rudolph. Some people might look at a Jerick McKinnon or a Lats Murray as playable here. I'm sure they're in play, but I certainly don't love either of them in this slate, mostly because they both vulture from one another. I mean, there's only so many carries to go around, and it does seem that McKinnon gets the passing game work and Latavius Murray continues to get the rushing game work. I actually think after a couple weeks off that Murray's legs may be even a little more healed up, so this is a situation to avoid outside of the tight ends on both teams. For the Redskins, that probably means Vernon Davis, who is a pretty good play here against a 20th ranked tight end defense for the Vikings, and of course, like I said, Kyle Rudolph and the almost the worst in the league, or giving up the most points to tight end in the league, Redskins defense. But not a whole lot else going on with that particular game. Moving on to some other even less exciting games, we have the Packers heading out to Chicago to take on the Bears in a game with a 38-point total. You know, there was a time when the Packers themselves would have had a 38-point total, or something close to it, a projection in a game like this. But what we've seen is from the Packers under Brett Hundley has not been all that good. So we have a 38-point total on this game, a 5.5-point spread for Chicago. Again, it's wild, but it is what it is. And to be quite honest, I think we have to accept at this point that I was really not sure. Obviously, when a new guy, Hundley, comes out, he's got some rushing chops, and he's been in that system for a few years. You're kind of like, hey, maybe we'll get some of that Matty Flynn magic out of him. But unfortunately, that just hasn't come together. I mean, he just hasn't looked very good at all. There's literally no reason to play this guy. His wide receivers haven't been doing well under him. They're not scoring enough. They certainly aren't justifying their price tags on FanDuel or DraftKings. And obviously, you're seeing that in the rapid decline of the salary levels, with Nelson now in the 5s and Adam at 5,000 and Randall Cobb relegated to 4,300, on DraftKings, and not much better on FanDuel. So basically, we're discounting all of the weapons for the Packers here just because they're pretty much a mess under Hundley. The Bears' offense hasn't actually been all that much better under Trubisky. Their passing game is virtually non-existent at this point, and everything runs through the defense and through mainly Jordan Howard. Statistically, the Packers aren't all that bad against the running back position. They're ranked 11th overall. On paper, it still seems like a pretty good spot for Jordan Howard. If they're going to do scoring, I do believe that he's going to be the guy to do it. So Howard, I think, is going to be very popular this week, and pretty much the only play outside of Chicago defense that I'm interested in this particular game. Right. Moving on, we have another... Now, this has a little more goodness in it, game here, but we're keeping it in the Midwest with the Steelers heading out to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. And even though this game only has a 44-point total, the Steelers are actually 10-point favorites with a 27-point team total, so the Steelers are expected to score a lot, and the Colts are expected to do nothing. Defensively, it's a tale of two cities here. The Steelers' defense is actually one of the best in the league this season, ranking, top 10 against quarterbacks, running backs, pretty good against the wide receiver positions, and number 2 overall against tight ends. So this is not a Jack Doyle week, unfortunately. It's not outside of a very, very fascinating contrarian play, it's really not a Colts offense at all. I could see taking a shot on T.Y. Hilton again just because he's at home and no one will be on him in a perceived very difficult matchup. But, that's not a core play. That'd be some sort of GPP tournament play more than anything else. On the Pittsburgh side, the tough part whenever you play a team like the Colts is to figure out, what you're really going to need to do to attack them, because the Colts are terrible in every defensive category. So it's not like you could look at this team and go, oh yeah, you attack them but with the run, or you attack them with the pass. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell is, as always, in a spectacular spot. This is a bad run defense. Bell's historically done better on the road than he has it in home games for some odd reason. The biggest challenge with Le'Veon Bell for me is just the incredibly high salary. And it's not going to turn me off to him, and I certainly love him in cash games. But that incredibly high salary, something I always talk about in tournaments is he really, really needs to go crazy to pay off on that salary in a tournament. Because in a GPP, just about every possible combination is going to be covered, at least in a large one. And if some running back that costs $6,000 or $5,000 goes off for 35 points, and you have Le'Veon Bell at $10,000 going off, well, that's great for the same 30 points. Well, that's great, but you're not going to win the GPP because the rest of the team that you had to build to fit this guy probably isn't going to do as good as the guy who took, let's say, a Carlos Hyde who put up the same score for 4,000 less. That doesn't mean you shouldn't play Le'Veon Bell. You should, because he is a work machine. He gets 30 touches a game. He's as locked in of a points machine as you can get. But there is some merit to at least slightly fading the highest priced running back or wide receiver in tournaments. Just saying that. That said, this is as good a matchup as Bell will have all year, and, he's the man. So, outside of that, we have Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and apparently Martavis Bryant back for this one for the Steelers. That's a tricky situation. Again, it's really, really tough to pay up $9,300 for Antonio Brown this week if we're trying to pay for running backs. So I see sort of a Roethlisberger-Brown stack as more of a contrarian tournament play as opposed to anything I would want to do in a cash game. Smith-Schuster, he had a big game last week. I'm not sure I'm willing to chase those points again. I definitely played a ton of him last time out. It was a primetime slate. I think I had 100% ownership on him just because you needed that salary relief in a short slate. Wish I played him in the main or in one of those Thursday through Monday ones, obviously, because that would have been awesome. But I'm not sure I'm going to count on him to repeat. I also think that there's a bit of an ebb and flow with these teams, where if they highlighted Smith-Schuster this week and Brown's kind of sitting on the sideline, I think Roethlisberger's going to want to feed Brown a little bit more just to get him sort of back in the swing of things. I actually expect Brown to have a good game. I just think it's tough to afford him this week. Unfortunately, on the side of the Colts, there is absolutely nothing that interests me about that team. The Steelers are just a really good defense and not a team to trifle with. Okay, moving on to another low-scoring game. And by the way, we've got a bunch of these really, really low projected games this week, which almost makes things a little easier from a DFS perspective because we can almost shut down mentally some of these teams and say, you know what, let's stay away from these guys. Now, this game does have some interest, though, and I'm going to point out some specs or some of the numbers per se on this next game. We got the Chargers heading out to Jacksonville. It's a long flight. 41-point total. Chargers 3.5-point underdogs. All right, that's where we start. The defensive number, some of the defensive numbers here are interesting, so I'm just going to go through them because it does point to a way to attack this game. All right, the Jaguars defense, number 1 overall against stopping quarterback position, limiting QB points. They're number 1 overall. That completely negates Phillip Rivers. Take him out of the equation. They're number 2 overall against WR1 and number 9 against WR2 and number 10 against the tight end position. Number 12 against the other wide receiver. So basically, you can't pass on this team. Rivers and his pass catchers, no go, no bueno. Now, interestingly, the Jags are 31st overall against the run. So basically, because you can't pass on this team, teams attack them via the run. And they beat them with the run because they're 31st overall, giving up points to the running back position. That doesn't actually mean that they're a terrible defense against the run, so much as their pass defense is so good that at some point teams just don't bother even attacking that way, and they move on to the run. And I think just the way that the Jaguars play probably lends itself a little bit to closer games where you can keep rushing the football. So that puts Melvin Gordon squarely in play as what I would call a bit of a GPP contrarian play. I don't think he's going to be popular this week compared to some of the other teams with better sort of Vegas totals and maybe favored teams and whatnot. But Gordon's in play here. He's usable against the 31st overall ranked run defense. Now, that said, the Chargers are like a mirror image of the Jags, but just like a worse version. So they're giving up the 9th most point, only 9, basically the 9th overall in points against the QB position, 9th overall against wide receivers, wide receiver 1, 5th overall against WR2. So basically, the Chargers also stop the pass, and they prevent opposing quarterbacks from doing well against them. That's been their MO this season. That comes at the expense of the running back position, in which they're ranked 26th overall. So they're giving up a lot of points to running backs. Well, the Jags have a running back that's pretty good in Leonard Fournette. It all seems so simple on paper. Don't play the passing games here. Play the running games. Play Fournette. He's a top play on the slate. Melvin Gordon, no one's going to use him. He becomes a really nice contrarian GPP play for this week. So that's what I'm looking at for that game. Literally nothing else. Moving on, we have my beloved New York Jets heading down to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. In another very, very low-scoring game with a 41.5-point Vegas total, Jets are slight favorites on the road, 2.5 points. In this game, the Bucs will be without Jameis Winston, their quarterback, and without Mike Evans, who was suspended for his big hit last week on... can't remember who. But nonetheless, he was suspended for a big hit. He's not in this game, so basically it's the Fitzmagic show. Oh man, I should have had some music queued up for Fitzmagic, but I didn't think of it. But it is the Ryan Fitzpatrick show. Now, here's what I know about Fitzpatrick. He sucks. All right, he throws interceptions. He'll have a good game. He'll tease you, and this could be the tease game. So he does have a good game in him here or there, but not much more than that. And I think actually that like mediocre to not horrible game, he might have gotten that out of the way last week when he came in for Winston and played okay. So I'm not a fan of Fitzpatrick. I'm certainly not a fan of his pass catchers. On the Jets, none of them are usable. I guess Deshaun Jackson, if you're desperate, and he does save you some money on DraftKings at $4,900, and it is a home game, and so on and so forth. But really, no, I don't like any of these guys. And the Jets have not been a terrible defense. I mean, they are exploitable, particularly via the pass. But I mean, it's not a real quarterback they're facing. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick. And some people were talking about Fitzpatrick as some sort of revenge narrative against the Jets. I just want to say, what's their revenge for? This guy got a ton of money, threw interceptions nonstop. Yes, he played for the Jets last year, but he was awful. And there's no revenge. I mean, he got all this money. He held out wisely because he's a smart guy. They bring him in, pay him all this money, and he's the worst. So many interceptions. I believe there was a 6-interception game at Houston. So I don't think anything's changed about Fitzpatrick at all. I think he is who he is, and I think he stinks. And he's got no Mike Evans here. Even if he was good, this is a bad spot. Jets are playing well. They've been competitive in every game. Yeah, we all thought they were going to suck this year, but the reality is they actually probably should be 6-3, not 4-5. They lost 2 games in the fourth quarter, sort of with meltdowns, and it was a confidence thing. I was rooting against them. I wanted that first round top draft pick for a top QB at this point because I kind of gave up on the season before it started, but I stand corrected. They've played well. It's a scrappy team. They play with heart. Got to give them credit. I like Jets' defense in this spot. A couple of interesting notes. Matt Forte has not practiced pretty much all week, or at least up until now. And that's interesting. If he doesn't play, Bilal Powell becomes a very, very interesting play. Robbie Anderson is a possibility here.
Hey, what's going on?
Welcome, Chop. All right. You made it.
Yeah, family duties. What are you going to do?
I hear you. All right, so we're picking up right with the Jets here. And I was just talking about Fitzpatrick and the level of terrible and how I was really talking about the idea that there's some sort of revenge narrative for Fitzpatrick coming against the Jets. And I'm trying to understand, I don't really see where the revenge is. The team that should be getting revenge is the Jets on Fitzpatrick because he robbed them blind. What do you think?
I think that in order for there to be a revenge narrative at play, I think that the player supposedly exacting revenge needs to have some talent.
Well, that too. He has to have the capacity to exact revenge.
I can't stand the Chicago Blackhawks, but if I go up there to play them in hockey, I'm going to get killed.
I would certainly agree.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah. So I mean, the point is though, he sucks. He doesn't. The Jets don't owe him anything. He was not slighted by them. As a matter of fact, he got the hookup. And so in this game, as I was saying, basically, I do like the Jets side of it. I like Jets defense. I like Robbie Anderson. He's been a focus, and actually he's been playing really well.
you would know better than I do because you watch all their games. But just looking at his target log and everything else the past couple of weeks, I mean, he's been very consistent. It seems like he's emerged as the number one. I'm really kind of into him this week too.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a little chalky. I think part of it is how terrible the Bucs defense has been. And,
absolutely.
I'm just going to run through the numbers on the Bucs here because it's crazy. QB, 31st overall. In other words, if you're a quarterback going up against the Bucs, they give up the second most points in the league to the position. Now, when you're giving up a lot of points to QBs, it does tend to translate to wide receivers, and they're in the bottom of the league against every statistical category, including running back. So they're just about as terrible as the Colts or a couple of these other really terrible defenses this year. I think McCown is in play. I think Robbie Anderson is in play. And I'm really, really hoping that we get some clarity on the Matt Forte injury situation. Because if he is out, then Bilal Powell becomes a very, very solid, low-cost punt play this week. He becomes probably the chalk, I would say.
Ooh.
Yeah. You might get an all-in call if we find out Matt Forte is out. And
wow.
I don't often do all-in calls, but when I do, you need to follow them. So we'll see.
Yeah,
what
you're not going to hear me complain if he's out. Obviously, what's his price?
Powell's cheap. I think he's in the 4s on DraftKings, and I'll pull it up. But he is very inexpensive. He's been inexpensive.
He's not somebody that had hit my radar because I haven't been following enough of the running back situation to know that Forte was a question mark.
Yeah, he has not practiced all week. Powell's at $4,000, his cheapest salary, I believe, of the entire season. So it's coming up at the right time. And if we do find out that Forte is out, this will be the ultimate punt play. It's going to be an all-in. No question. At $4,000, I don't even need 20 touches from Powell. If I can get 14 touches out of him, because they'll mix McGuire in there, but if I can get 14 touches out of him in this game for $4,000, I think that's a lot better than what else I can do for $4,000 on DraftKings anyway. And then he'll be a consideration on FanDuel as well. I think you can't not consider Powell for the amount of work he gets and for this spectacular matchup. Again, assuming that Forte doesn't... he didn't practice today, and it's Thursday. Let's see what happens tomorrow. And he's an old guy. Maybe they just don't let him practice, but he'll play. But at this point, we don't know.
Do you get at all concerned about the Jets only carrying a 22 implied total? Because when you look at all the green on the DVP chart from quarterback to wide receiver to even running back, the Buccaneers are just spewing points to opposing teams. Does the 22 scare you at all from just kind of stacking this game up, or are you just doing it anyway because you think it's going to play to the over? Sorry for me catching up here, but obviously I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to play to the over so much as I think the Jets are going to not only win but cover handily. So I think that in essence, from the Jets part of the football, for the Jets side of it, I think they will score more points than what they are being projected. And the Jets they have so few playmakers that even with just a 21-point total, if you have the running back who's the main guy and you have Robbie Anderson, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, there aren't that many weapons on that Jet offense to spread the ball around to. And I like those situations. I like situations where I can fairly predict who is getting the production for a team. So even with a tight spread, I think you could play it. And I definitely love the running back position has nothing to do with the total or anything. It's all about opportunities in this one game versus his cost. Because Powell could get you the same score as any one of the, if they ran him 20 touches, Bilal Powell is capable of putting up the same score as Fournette and any of these other guys any given week. It could happen. I'm not saying it will happen as consistently, but in this kind of a matchup, he certainly has that ability to put up a 30 or a 25-point day, which is probably what you're hoping for from Gurley and some of the top-price studs. So, yeah, I'm going to take the $4,000 guy that's got that upside.
That's worth mentioning, not to knock you completely off the rails, but a lot of times people hear you mention names and I like this guy and I like this guy and this guy's in a good matchup and this guy could do this. And people, I mean, I know that when I listen to podcasts, I get confused by, okay, well, how much do you like this guy? But what you said there was very telling in that he has 20-point potential. Is he going to get it? Maybe, maybe not. But he has that potential. And the key is, like you said, he has the same potential as maybe a Leonard Fournette if he's getting all of the workload and things go right at about half the price. And that's the big factor because you don't need him to have the 20 points. You need Fournette to have 20 points. You don't need Powell to have 20 points. You need him to have 13, 14. And there's a big cushion there. It's a big cushion there, and it gives you a lot of margin for error with your other choices on the construction that you're building, and then you're able to apply that later on in your lineup to maybe buy up some other spots that really push that lineup further and further up. And if it all hits on all cylinders, now you've really got something.
That's the whole thing. And I actually mentioned this a little earlier in the pod in talking about Le'Veon Bell and how at 9,800, he's a great cash play because he's going to get you 30 touches. And, you know, that doesn't mean he's going to put up 35, 40 points. There's a chance he only gets you 22 or 20. But that should be a reasonable floor for a guy like Bell. The thing is, if you pay that much in a tournament and he doesn't get you 40, 45 points, and some other cheaper running back does get a similar kind of number, so let's say you pay up for Bell and he gets you 28. Okay, and you're kind of feeling okay in your cash game. But if you did that in your tournament lineup, and in a tournament, every possible iteration and scenario is covered. So if Carlos Hyde goes off for 28 points this week for 4,000 less, or Bilal Powell does that for half the price and you don't have him, then your lineup compared to that other person who paid so much less and got so much value out of that is going to be so much worse because they were able to pay up in other positions and get points elsewhere. So, and it's virtually a lock. It's actually, the probabilities are much higher that there will be some player below that will score just as much for a lot cheaper. So in GPPs, it's almost a bad play to take the most expensive player at a position and play them because if a cheaper version of that player puts up the same points, that person has a leg up with you, and that's about winning, not cashing the GPP. It's about winning a GPP,
Correct.
And that's the difference. If you're playing it to win it, then you'd almost avoid those situations just for the probabilities.
It's just harder to hit your ceiling at 9,800 than it is at 4,000.
Yeah, and you don't have to, but it depends on the week. Some weeks there's so much value that it just doesn't matter, and you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to play this, and it doesn't matter, and blah blah blah. But there's not that this week. Outside of this Powell situation, that's the first real value spot that's opened up all week that I've seen. I mean, we'll talk about another one, but let's get to that.
Sure. That still hinges on the Forte injury, just to be clear.
Of course. Yeah, but there is there's another very, very well-known situation, but we're not there yet.
All right.
We're going to warn about that one. So I'll keep going with these games. I'll read them off here. So
sounds good.
The next one on the docket, literally, by the way, I've gone through 5 or 6 games, and we haven't passed the 42-point total, and it's continuing. So it's very low totals, man. I don't know what's going on here. It's a weird week. It's a weird week. 40-point total, 40.5 points. We got the Bengals going to Tennessee. Bengals, slight underdogs, interestingly. 4.5-point underdogs. 40.5. I mean, the team totals here are disgusting. 18 points for the Bengals, 22.5 for the Titans. Looking at the numbers, the Titans kind of decent defensively this year. Number 12 overall against running backs. Number 10 against WR1. Vulnerable to number 2 wide receiver. I'm going to take a look at a chart on that in a second here as we continue with this. So they're pretty good defensively, but they give their 22nd overall against the QB position. Not great. Middle of the road. Bengals, kind of middle of the road defense too. Pretty good against WR1, because I believe that's Pac-Man Jones doing his thing. And they've been pretty good, number 7 overall against running backs, and then, bad versus tight ends. They're vulnerable to the tight end. They're almost a tight end funnel defense, I would say. And reading off those numbers actually just inspired me to look at my wide receiver cornerback chart and see who it is from the Titans that seems to be doing so well against WR1s. Let's take a look here and see what we could find. So I've got Cincinnati, AJ Green going up against someone named Adderey I don't. You know what's wild? I don't recognize any of these names. So we got Adderey Jackson, LaShawn Sims,
one of them's
and Logan
pretty
Ryan.
good, apparently.
There's a guy who's good. Okay, Logan Ryan. Here we go. Logan Ryan seems to be the one targeted the least. He's got that 13.9% target ratio. He must be their top guy. The targets tend to go to this Adoree Jackson, but you know what? None of these are recognizable. These guys aren't scaring. I ain't scared of any of them. So none of these guys are scaring me off AJ Green. That was my point. I liked AJ Green, and I'm like, wait a minute, these numbers look pretty good, but I still like Green. For the rest of that game, though, I mean, there's not a whole lot of goodness here. It's a very low total. Two pretty good defensive teams. Titans, I mean, they have this weird. Both teams have a weird situation going on at running back that doesn't make me super excited. Like, I'd love to play Mixon with Titans. I mean, maybe Delaney Walker would be interesting, except he's hurt. Not a whole lot to like here.
A lot
What do
of
you
red
think?
zone work this year either.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what do you think? Any interesting? Plays
No,
in this
really,
one?
no. That's why I'm letting you go dead space while you're looking up charts and everything. Because to be honest with you, I got no interest in Dalton, no interest in the running game. I have very little interest in AJ Green only because I typically pay up for both spots at running back in my cash games. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to afford AJ Green. He's not in a good enough, sexy enough spot that I want to. I don't think it's going to punish me if I don't. Any of the other guys, they just there's either better spots out there that I've found. I haven't looked to this game for anything. The one situation I'm watching for weeks going forward, though, is this whole Rashard Matthews, Corey Davis type situation. I'm off of Delaney Walker because he's not getting any red zone love for whatever reason. But I'm wanting to see which one of these two receivers emerges as a number one because earlier in the year it was kind of a thing. And to be honest with you, if we can find one going on later in the year as pricing gets tighter and tighter and tighter, this will be a spot that I will at least glance at every week to see, is this the week that I can trust one of these guys? I just haven't come across it yet, but that's really the only thing I'm watching this game for.
Yeah, I mean, I do like AJ Green here a little bit more than that. I like Green does well in these kind of spots. So Green is outside of an elite cornerback situation like a Xavier Rhodes type scenario. AJ Green is really good, and he could beat this type of scenario. And I think there's a little bit of him wanting to sort of wipe this. He wants to, I guess, wash the stank off of the incident from last week. He's been called soft. He's been dissed. He's been embarrassed.
Might be a little extra incentive.
I do. I like that. That psychological incentive. I think they might feed him a little bit here, sort of get him, back and going and whatnot. So I do like Green a little bit there. And with Corey Davis, I do think he is the number one wide receiver, or he will emerge. But I don't know that this is the spot where against a top-ranked Bengals pass defense in this horrible low-spread game where we want to get involved with it. So.
Nobody likes AJ Green, honestly, more than me. I'm not going to walk back what I said. AJ Green's a stud. He's one of probably the top, I could argue, top 3 wide receivers in the entire league. And, talent-wise and everything. I mean, he's great. I've played him I've had him in season-long leagues. I've played him in DFS in years past like crazy. I just haven't really, for whatever reason, played him a lot this year, not because I don't love the guy. And I haven't been burned for it yet. He hasn't been that one guy that I've had to own or else I don't hit my games yet. So that's all I was saying was, I mean, I know I see the love around the industry. There are a lot of people that are on him that like him. I can see why. I just, for whatever reason, I just personally don't see myself reaching up for him this week. And I'm just saying I don't think I'm going to regret it. There will be, I'm sure, players that we will regret not playing. It happens every week. I just don't know that he's going to be the guy. If it is, then, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with paying up.
No,
by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with paying up at running back this week. That is great. So you don't have to buy expensive wide receivers this season at all. It has not been a winning.
I haven't done it yet. You know how many times I've played Antonio Brown this year? 0.
I mean, I have not played him much at all.
I also don't make 20 and 30 lineups either. If I did, I certainly would. But I'm making 3 to 5 lineups a week, and I haven't had to reach up for those guys. And the times I have been guys in great matchups that have kind of not really done a whole lot. I'm Antonio Brown and AJ Green are 2 guys I love playing week in and week out. I'm a cash guy, and they are cash players.
Yeah, so, I agree with that.
That's right.
There we go. What's next on the docket? What do we got?
I got to scroll my screen down here a little bit. Thought you were reading those babies.
No, I got to give it to you. I need a minute to take a sip of water.
Wet the whistle.
Look at the actual numbers. Wet the old whistle.
Let's head to Buffalo. New Orleans Saints, Buffalo Bills. This one, hey, see, I come in late. I get the good games. This one has a 46.5 point total. This one has a 46.5 point total, so at least that's something. 3 point. Actually, the Bills are not favored here. It's the Saints going into there because they're such a hot team, but it's not like the Bills aren't 6-2 in their own right. There's a lot of red, yellow, orange, red on our DVP charts. The only one that I really, really see is that New Orleans is soft against the running backs, which lends us to think that LaShawn McCoy's in a great spot. This again is not a game I'm particularly focused on because I'm a little bit afraid of what happened the last couple of times. Like Denver went into Buffalo, and I really liked C.J. Anderson that week. I wound up disappointed. Oakland went into Buffalo. I was really off of them, and they were okay. But as I remember, it wasn't, my cash players, my Crabtree type week. Carr had some good stuff late that repaired a lot of damage, but he didn't exactly smash when he went into Buffalo. So I'm a little confused by Buffalo at home, and I don't know if they're really all that exploitable. I might be intrigued off that matchup in LaShawn McCoy, but I don't like the fact that they're underdogs.
Yeah, I agree with you. This game almost seems to have – it has a fairly high total. It seems high because all these other games are so low. This isn't actually a very high total. It's kind of middling. But,
right.
Buffalo hasn't been a place where teams go to have fantasy points bonanzas this year by any stretch. And the Saints have not been a team that have been exploited by opposing teams fantasy points wise. So –
outside of New England in week 2.
Yeah, exactly. That was angry Tom, and no one can stop Tom Brady when he's mad. This is like one of these play to the under potential games. The one thing that stands out in this entire game is that the Saints really don't stop the run very well. And so, LaShawn McCoy seems like a nice, again, he remains an alternative or a contrarian play. There's going to be a little more chalky running back situations this week at the top. I think Fournette and Gurley,
yes.
Even Carlos Hyde at a slightly lower price point, and of course Le'Veon Bell. You have these, what I would call the chalk ones, and then you have a few contrarian ones that are actually good spots, like Melvin Gordon, and here we have LaShawn McCoy, good spot at home. Very playable. So, there's definitely a lot of running backs to choose from this week, and McCoy is in that grouping. But outside of that, what else do you really want to? Where do you want to go with this one? The Saints have the Buffalo wide receiver crew is completely unpredictable. That's what I'm going to call them. Unpredictable. You want to tell me Kelvin Benjamin, and there are names I don't even know, Deontay Thompson or Deontay Robinson. I can't even remember because there's so many of these guys.
We still need to wait a week or so and see what Kelvin Benjamin's even going to do.
Yeah, we don't know what Kelvin Benjamin's
We don't have
deal is,
any
like
idea what's going to happen.
how involved he is in this offense. And again, they have a few other guys. I can't, like I said, I can't even fully remember all the names. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I got him here.
They need Charles Clay back.
I mean, Deontay Thompson is he? I liked him, but I mean, he got a lot of targets last week. Charles Clay is coming back this week.
Is he?
Yeah, so another leech for touches. I will say this: I don't mind if you want to use Tyrod Taylor in cash games. Fine by me. Fine by me. I think he's at home. He plays well at home. He scores points. But I think it's hard to figure out who to match. And I don't like a guy coming off injury at all. I don't do that.
Right. No, and that's why Clay would be out. But it's good that they got him back because he and LaShawn McCoy were the leading target receivers the first, say, 4 or 5 weeks until Clay went down, and then it just became McCoy and then whatever the hell else was happening. So who knows?
Absolutely. And so that's the whole thing right there. We don't know who they're going to throw to, but I would run Tyrod naked or Tyrod even with McCoy here. But this is a contrarian game in general because even as bad as some of these games have looked on paper, they continue to improve as we go through here. The later ones are better. So there are some decent ones here. Let's move on.
Sounds good to me. We'll give that another little scroll here, let my screen catch up with me. Cleveland Browns at Detroit Lions. Man, it ain't getting better yet, buddy. Maybe a little bit. Cleveland goes into Detroit. We know that one's fast track on the Dome. Detroit is a 12.5-point home favorite. 44 points is a middling total, but that huge spread gives the Lions a tremendous implied total, for themselves of 28 points, which is actually going to be one of the highest on the week for sure. That obviously, I'm not worried about the Browns unless you've got something that you're going to say about them. But, I mean, Detroit obviously comes squarely into play. I'll leave you a couple of picks. I want to say that I do like Matt Stafford. When I get the option to pay for him or have money left over to go up to, a Dak or something like that, I'm taking that option to go up a little bit higher. But if I got capped with other stuff and got stuck on Matt Stafford, I'd still be thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that Stafford is going to be super chalky this week. He'll be one of the higher-owned quarterbacks. He's one of the first, and as part of this is a little bit of recency bias because we watched the primetime game on Monday night, so it's like more recent, and he was crushing, finally. But it's also this matchup. I mean, when you look at the matchups in the slate and the prices and the salaries and the stacks and all of that, this game just stands out. I mean, it's the Browns.
Right.
They're not very good. Now, they do have one good quality cornerback. And it's a little interesting to try to figure out who that cornerback is going to be on. And so, that's a little bit of digging that I'm going to continue to do throughout this week to see if we can figure out, like, who's going to be covering who in this game. We know that the Browns have, what's his name? Jason McCourty, right? He is basically he's been shadowing people. My expectation is that he'll actually be on Marvin Jones Jr.
I would agree.
Because the role that Tate plays is more of a slot, sort of like a hybrid kind of thing. I
agree.
So I think he'll be on Jones Jr., and I think actually more people in the DFS world will actually be targeting Marvin Jones Jr. for their teams because
I agree
they see him coming off the big touchdown game last week. So it makes you want to go to Golden Tate.
I agree. I actually thought you were going to be higher on Jones, and I was going to bring that question up to see what you thought. So it's nice to see that you're already one step ahead of me there because again, listening around the industry, reading other authors, whatever, compiling our own stuff, I'm seeing a lot of people gravitating towards Jones, and I know it's recency bias, and I get why. But at the same time, if this young kid does shadow him, I think that this guy's been shut down. I mean, he's probably the only bright spot in the entire city of Cleveland right now. I hate to say it.
He's been very good. Good on Cleveland for accidentally drafting him. And
accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally. This guy's allowing a 34.9% catch rate. I want to let that sink in. You talk about good numbers, okay? You have a lot of these supposedly shutdown cornerbacks that are shutting people down, and they're great. But then you look at their numbers, and they ain't that great. They're allowing high rates of receptions and his catch rate allowed. No, it's the quarterback passer rating. I'm sorry, not the catch. The quarterbacks targeting Jason McCourty are getting a 34.9 passer rating. Okay, for reference.
That's ugly.
It's very bad. For reference, Jalen Ramsey, who from the Jags, and AJ Booley or whoever from the Jags too, these guys are 48%, 48 or 42 ratings.
Really?
So not even as good as what McCourty is doing. Now that could be random noise and some other things, and you could really tell the best corner just by quickly. Let's see if we could find Xavier Rhodes here, if he's on this. There he is. Even a Xavier Rhodes, 73.
The Jalen Ramsey one's the most intriguing to me because I would think most people would say that he's the lockdown corner of the year right now.
He is. And he's been spectacular. 50% catch rate. But, I mean, just to give you an idea, the point was to say, listen, this McCourty guy, and I don't know if this is going to hold up, but so far he's been very, very good. We don't want to take... So let's say Marvin Jones Jr. is going to be chalk, and I think he will be. And this is like something I'm coming up with on the fly right now, so let's roll with it. But I expect Marvin Jones Jr. to be the chalk, right? He was one of the first players I looked at this week when I was looking at the slate. A lot of people are going to be on him. He's going to have the best corner in the league, or at least one of the best on him, potentially. Now, we'll research that further and kind of get a feeling if we can confirm it, that McCourty will be on him. But if that's the case, that should push the targets to Golden Tate. And Golden Tate should wind up being... It would be one of those two guys, but it should be Tate. So that's a very interesting way to fade the chalk of Marvin Jones Jr. and move over to the slightly more expensive, but potentially in a much better scenario, Golden Tate.
Yeah, I would agree.
There we go. Anything else in this game?
What do you think? Well, what do you think about Eric Ebron, real quick? I don't trust the guy for shit, but to be honest with you, he is going up against the team that for the first 8 weeks of the year we've been just targeting the crap out of with tight ends. Is there anything there, or do you just like other guys better this week?
Yeah, you can't play Ebron.
All I needed to hear.
He's just unplayable, unfortunately. Yeah, you like matchups, blah, 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 but I don't think he's playable.
Yeah, talent over matchups, guys. Talent over matchups.
And just targets, and they're phasing him out, and Daniel Fells has been getting in there. No, it's just not been good. I don't want to take that chance.
I'm intrigued to talk about the next game with you because I wonder how we're going to feel about this. I'm interested to see how you feel about it. Let's put it that way. It's Dallas Cowboys going to Atlanta, and
are we
this
skipping
game
one?
has
Are we skipping
no, we
one?
shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's the Rams. Yeah, go back up. We got the Rams and the Texans first.
Oh, see, yeah, my lag. Okay, so in 2 games, I'm going to be interested to get your opinion on.
I just don't want to skip one because we'll forget it. I'll forget about it.
We won't come. Absolutely, we won't come back to it. So we'll start with the Sunday 4 p.m. games. Houston, Texas at L.A. Houston going out west, 46-point total. Again, another 12-point total in the home favorite team. That gives the Rams a 29 implied total. And the reason I mention those is because those are, big green lights typically for me being a chalky player. And that 12-point spread at home with that huge total tells me out of those 4 touchdowns implied, Todd Gurley, I know Goff has been pretty good lately, and he's going to carry some recency bias, but Todd Gurley might get 3 of them. The way they use that dude is insane. I love him this week, even against the Houston Texans having a pretty solid run defense. I just think when you give the guy the ball 25 to 30 times and design pass plays for him to get a few targets, I just don't see how this guy doesn't do his usual 22 to 24 points this week again. So that's where I'd be going with this game. I don't know that I'd be interested with anybody else.
I mean, it's when we do the Vegas Lines podcast, the idea is to analyze game flows based on what the lines makers are telling us. And when you have a team that's a home team favored massively by 12.5 points, that happens to be the type of team that loves to lean on the run. I mean, the odds makers are telling you to play Gurley here.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of analysis required.
No, I mean they're saying to play Gurley. Listen, Houston has been pretty good against running backs, but J.J. Watt is gone. Now they still have a good defensive line. They still have good linebackers. Absolutely. But Rams defense is in play here. I mean, the Rams are good. They stop quarterbacks. What are the Texans supposed to do against these guys? So I think it's it's funny. We saw the Rams break a team last week, and I was really expecting them to just go crazy on the run. And the game flow set up perfectly for Todd Gurley to go bananas in the second quarter or in the second half. And he had a good game, but he didn't go bananas. I was a little surprised actually. They kept throwing. And I'm like, what are they doing here? So, one can be surprised, and maybe they're gonna do a little more of the Air Goff show here, and we're gonna see more of this passing game that we hadn't seen from Goff ever until the last few games. I don't think so. I think I'm not chasing those points.
No, I think teams typically are who they are, and they may throw you a curveball once in a while. And that's why I would say with Todd Gurley, I would say that he is in a nice little bounce back spot. Not that he had a terrible week last week, but it wasn't, phenomenal. I would say he has more or less a more up to his ceiling type week. And I would say LaShawn McCoy's in the same spot because LaShawn had just a miserable week where he wasn't used. There was nothing going on. I just need to know that his groin isn't the issue and he's not telling anybody, as far as McCoy is concerned. But if you ran those two quarterbacks, if you ran Gurley and McCoy together, you're kind of set up pretty good.
It's a good combo. I still find it odd.
It's a good tourney combo. But
the lack of carries for Gurley last week was just odd. And I don't know why it went down that way. Only 16 carries, only 59 yards. He didn't get a lot of yardage against the Giants, which I understand. The Giants defensively are supposedly good, but it is a little concerning the lack of touches last week in particular, and in this massive blowout that should have game flowed perfectly for Todd Gurley to go bananas. But outside of that, he's been awesome all year. Even last week on a quote down week, he gets you 25 points.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess he did get 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he got the 2 touchdowns, which made up for it. But if he doesn't get you 2 touchdowns, it could have been rough. But he also had a lot of receiving yards. In the end of the day, this guy's a stud. He is going to be the chalk this week. He is facing off against a quality run defense. But Houston is, in quit mode. So I would keep it in mind. It's not the best matchup, again, just based on the DVP numbers. If I had to choose the 2 best matchups just straight up, I'm probably going Bell and Fournette. Right, those to me are the uber chalks. But as far as the Vegas lines go, it'd be Bell and Gurley because both of those teams are massively favored. So you have to go and take those things into consideration. Which way do you want to go? Or again, there's the third scenario where you really don't want to pay up for all of those spots, and that's where you take the Hydes and hopefully the Bilal Powells and those types in there. So we have a few different situations come together. But coming back to this game, there's nothing I'm interested in on the Houston side. Nothing. I like Rams defense. I like Gurley. And that's it. I'm not playing golf. I'm not chasing those points.
I'm not chasing them either. I saw a couple scenarios building where I had money left over and had a receiver left, and I went up, oh, look at there, I can get DeAndre Hopkins. No, sorry. Not anymore. No. I would have jumped on that a week or 2 ago, but not now. Nope.
A week if this was the Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
version
Well,
of the
he
team.
wouldn't
I
be
mean, I'd be all
7,500
in.
or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'd be all in on Deshaun,
Yeah.
on
It
Hopkins
felt
and Watson
horrible.
and all those guys, but it's
It
not.
felt horrible to fade the guy, but I was just like, oh, keep going, keep looking. That's not on your radar this week. So.
Nope.
All right.
And Will Fuller has now dropped down to
What's
Uber punt levels.
Really?
Yeah, he's like 4,000 or something.
This is a guy people were starting to compare to Randy Moss 3 weeks ago.
Well, and in fairness to him, he did put up Randy Moss-like numbers. I mean, props to that guy. He's the man.
Now all of a sudden, gone. Where are you, Will Fuller?
Unfortunately, with no
quarterback.
Yeah, with no quarterback, there's not a whole lot you could do.
Yeah, that stinks. You want to move to Dallas? Can I get your opinion on that game? All right. Dallas at Atlanta this time, for real. No pump fake on this one. I gave you the Matt Ryan pump fake. 50.5 point total, 3-point favorite for the Atlanta Falcons. And this game is once again, the quintessential shootout, lowish spread, highish total, stack up both sides, blah, blah, blah. But I'm personally not buying. And so that's why I want to get your opinion. Now, I like Dak, and I know that the whole Zeke thing, his suspension was upheld. That'll probably be overturned Sunday morning at 10 a.m. The whole, obviously, make your plans accordingly. I don't like necessarily Dez because I think Trufont's good enough if he's not hurt, or I haven't done a ton of digging yet. But I just am not buying that. I mean, Dak might have a good game, but I don't see anybody else over there I'm super excited about. And then that makes me wonder how they would even keep up. And then I look over at the Atlanta side, and they've just been bad pretty much, except for the last week or so. They've been bad pretty much all year, and I just don't believe them yet. So my question to you is, are you believing Vegas, or do you actually see it like I see it?
Well, number one, way to shit on the only 50-point projection game we've come across so far. So, like, if we don't like this one, what do you like?
It made me feel bad on Tuesday morning. I went, oh, not those guys. I'm not believing that one.
Well, here's the concern.
I don't know why.
There are concerns here, and the concerns are both of the number one wide receivers in this game appear to be somewhat hobbled. Julio Jones, as far as I know, has not practiced thus far this week.
Julio just ain't used.
He's now in decoy levels. So
he's probably been Megatron hurt for like all year. That's probably why they haven't been using it.
Brutal.
They just haven't said anything.
Yes, brutal season for him. Not unexpected, but it is what it is. So Julio Jones not doing anything, hurt right now, which is okay though. We don't sit here and bitch about that. We acknowledge it, and we try to figure out what is it that we can do to take advantage of the situation. And one way to take advantage of it is to move over to Mohamed Sanu, who has been doing really well every single week. I love him here. They're throwing to Sanu.
And his price hasn't gone up a lot.
No, he's still inexpensive. He's a punt. He's been doing well, like
What's
you said.
What's his price on DraftKings?
The DraftKings price, I think in the fives, low fives.
He's 6,500 on FanDuel, or right around there.
Again, punt level pricing. He's 5,100 on DraftKings.
Great.
He's one of my favorite DraftKings plays. This is a guy who's getting, he's inconsistent. He has a 10-target game, 7. Last week he had only 3 targets, but one of them was a touchdown. He's getting red zone looks. He had a 7-target game, a 10-target game, and when Julio is hurt, they throw to him more. Right? So, I mean, if Julio is hobbled, and I mean, he is right now. I don't know that he'll be on Sunday morning, but he is right now. I like Sanu. I like to pivot over to Sanu. It's taken me a while because I kind of have this cognitive bias about Sanu in past years, sort of not performing in situations. But more often than not this season, he's given you, 6+ targets every single game. And I'll take that for the price.
I've been on him since about week 3. He's the only Atlanta Falcon I've played outside of Devontae Freeman, and I played Freeman like once.
Ugh, Freeman. So
it's a shame, but the numbers don't lie, man. When you look at what people have done a couple of weeks leading up to something and how an offense is using them, it really points you in Sanu's direction. Just he's been consistently targeted.
There's a very important scenario here to discuss and what everybody wants to talk about. which is what's going to happen with the running backs for the Cowboys. Now, I know you were joking around about Zeke getting reinstated on Sunday, but there's no scheduled thing that's going to happen. He is missing this week. There may be a reinstatement at some point in the future, but he's missing this week.
Plan accordingly. Plan like he's out, because he most likely is, unless we get shocked like we did last week with the whole, oh my God, Zeke is in, oh my God, Zeke is in.
People are going to want to play Alfred Morris
eventually
here.
That train's going to stop.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, well, that's right. I think he should just take his medicine and...
Oh, me too. Don't miss the postseason. Don't be a dumbass.
Yeah. But, all right, so the coaching staff has talked about Alfred Morris being the starter. There's Rod Smith, who is a rookie of some sort, who's the number 2 guy or the passing downs back, in the Lance Dunbar role. And McFadden is in play as well. Now, there's a lot of differing opinions on what the Cowboys are actually going to do here. I've heard some beats say, well, they're going to start Morris, but they think that McFadden's going to actually secure the role at some point. Others have said it's going to be a 3-headed monster. There's no way of knowing, which means as much as I love a value play in cash, I do not feel cash safe with any of these guys. You just don't know what's gonna go down. I'd love to say, yeah, let's just roll out Freddie Morris for a bargain. This is a good matchup for running backs. The Falcons are 29th overall against the running back position. The Cowboys are worse. They're 30th, which makes Freeman an interesting GPP contrarian play that no one will play because they're all afraid of Devontae Freeman. But, he is a player that's able to go off at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So he's interesting this week, and he is not an immediate skip him, don't play him. I mean, I'm not playing him in my high dollar. I'm worried because he hasn't done shit, but, I mean, he's definitely in play. But, and so is Morris in GPPs, but neither one of them are cash playable. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of cash playable situations in this game at all, just because, like you said, I mean, Julio seems hurt. Dez seems kind of hurt. They got Trufant. I don't think you can trust a Terrence Williams to repeat what he did last week. I mean, he's never done that in his career.
No, yeah, he's not
that person who's had big games. I mean, he had one big game, but he's never had a second one this is the first time I've ever seen him have a big game like that, so I can't expect that he'll do it again. And Cole Beasley has been incredibly, Will Fuller-like in his efficiency and catching touchdowns. I don't know that can continue. And so we have a game in which...
I laughed because I was going to put the kiss of death on him.
No,
I was going to say, you want the kiss of death on Cole Beasley? Cole Beasley, if he scores 1 touchdown, he's going to score 2. He scores either 0 or 2 in most games. He gets about 4 touchdowns a year. He's there. His year is done. He won't score again until next year, where he'll score 2 in the same game, mind you. And there it is, the kiss of death. Cole Beasley goes off for 8 touchdowns and 800 yards this week because Chop just killed him.
Yeah, I guess if Dez was out, then I envision a scenario where Trufant sort of gets put on Terrence Williams, because Terrence Williams is sort of considered the deep threat guy, and Cole Beasley actually has a game. The issue with Beasley is it hasn't been talent. He's good. I like him as a player. He's got talent. The issue with him is they just don't throw to him that much. I mean, they just don't target him very often. Same thing with Terrence Williams. They just don't target these guys very often. And again, I think if Dez is out of the way and with no Zeke in there to sort of absorb all of the attention of the offense, maybe, just maybe, a new equation is written where they do throw to these guys more because that's the only way they have to move the ball. It's very possible. That's the sort of game flow that could potentially arise in a game like this. You also have a Falcons team that's good. Haven't been great this year offensively, but they can score. And so if the Falcons are putting pressure on Dallas, which hasn't happened all year really by any team, where they're putting enough pressure on them to make them just abandon the run and start throwing, then again you could see a Williams or a Beasley. Again, we have to see what the situation with. I think Dez will play. He's saying he's going to play, even though he's in practice. But we have to see how that plays out. But you could see some extra targets for Williams and Beasley. And again, I wouldn't want to chase the points with Beasley as far as, expecting more touchdowns. I think that's ridiculous. But, he could, at 4,000 on DraftKings, I mean, what I'm looking for out of him is, 6 or 8 targets and 75 yards and maybe a miracle touchdown. I mean, that would be great. So I'm not sure I'm going to play him. I got to see how some of these injuries play out, but there are some scenarios that do make sense where Terrence Williams or Beasley could be very playable. And obviously, I think Freddie Morris is the only running back that you can at least mildly play with some expectation. The matchup is really, really good. So I think in this case you might have to trust the Cowboys coaching staff when they say that Morris is the guy this week, but or let's listen and hear if they do actually say that, because I've heard he's starting, but let's hear how much equivocation they do, or if any of it happens before we make any final decisions with that.
The other thing I will add real quick is that total of 50.5 has come down 2 points to 48.5. That's on the Zeke news. Not that it's a bad game to target. I'm just wondering. I thought it would have come down a little bit more than that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, you would have thought so, but
right
I just think I think it probably should have come down a little bit more too also, and I could see it being a little bit less even by the time all is said and done.
Okay. Well, good enough for me. That was a big game. I thought that might take some more time. But I guess not. Like you said,
it's
just a lot of question marks is all.
Yeah, and now we get back into
where are we at?
The
New
final
York?
game of the year. Final game of the main slate.
That's New York at San Francisco, correct?
There we go. Yep.
42-point total. Road favorite New York Giants. God, what is it? New York Giants are favored by 2.5 points over the San Francisco Giants. That's just odd. But if you look at DVP charts, there's a lot of green on that chart, so it looks like stuff to target, but I'm not targeting Eli. I don't target any of the pass catchers on the Giants. San Francisco's at home. Maybe Hyde's in play. Don't trust any of the quarterbacks or the wide receivers with Garcon out. I don't like the game personally. Do you? For tournaments, I guess there's people that are in play, but for my cash game type stuff, I'm not looking at it. What are you looking at?
I do like this game.
There we go.
I like this game a lot.
That's why, because I don't see anything in it, and I'm the chalk guy, and that's why you like it.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Wait, I was going to do a Tormund. You do know her. I do like this game. That's from Game of Thrones. Tormund and the Hound talking about Brienne. All right, so yes, I do like this game very much because both teams are very bad defensively. The Giants have basically quit on the season. There's all kinds of talk about basically the Giants are in that scenario where teams get where they want their coach to get fired, so they kind of want to play bad so that the coach gets fired. But they're also men with pride, and so they're not going to tank and just not play. But I had this discussion with a few people this week, just locally being in New York, and it was more of the people like, well, are they sabotaging and they're not playing for the coach? And that's not what they do. That's not what goes on. What goes on is, like in football, if you're not giving it 110%, if your heart and soul isn't into it, this is the National Football League. Like, if your soul and heart, it's not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious. If you're giving it like 90% because you're like, I hate this McAdoo. He's a real prick, and he is. He's doing all this stuff, and he's making them. He's all kinds of. It's not normal that over the course of 3 weeks, 2 separate players have been suspended for disciplinary reasons. And these players are superstars on that team, not like, some scrub. You're talking Jalen Ramsey. You're talking Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. Top players on this team have been getting suspended for disciplinary issues. It's not normal. The team is falling apart. But that said, that doesn't mean they're not coming to play. And the Giants have a wide receiver, one guy in Sterling Shepard, that's probably going to absorb a shitload of targets in this game. They don't have other guys who are good. So Evans and Shepard are basically the main people, and they're going to get a lot of targets, and I like it. They're playing San Francisco. San Francisco sucks against the pass. They can't stop it. 24th overall, 27th allowing points to quarterback position. This is a prideful team. I love this game for both sides. I don't like Orleans Darkwater. I'm hearing his name. I just don't trust that he's the main starter for the Giants. And if you look at the Giants' weapons, I mean, it's Sterling Shepard. Then you have Tavares King and Roger Lewis. I don't think Roger Lewis has seen 3 targets in a game all season. Certainly hasn't caught 3 passes. Let me. I'll take a look here. Let's get those numbers. But I mean, he certainly hasn't caught 3 passes. I'm just trying to get to the slate so I can see.
I just wish there was anything I liked in the game to even add into the dead airspace there, because to be quite honest,
and there's so much more too. I mean, I actually want to check the Giants pass catchers, but there's other good things about this game. I like a lot of things about this game. I don't like the Giants running backs, and I'm not going to play Eli Manning, but I like Sterling Shepard very much on the Giants side of the football. Why not? I mean, he's been getting plenty of targets anyway. 9 targets last week. He's cheap, and he's in a much better matchup. If you look at this at the Giants' rest of the team, that's the whole thing. Like, it's not like they don't have other good wide receivers. Lewis Murphy, he's got. Oh wait, no, he's not. Wait a minute. Where's the rest of my? Oh, I just clicked on the. Here we go. Roger Lewis. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 1 point. I mean, he's done nothing. Wow. He hasn't passed like 1 or 2 fantasy points, and those are games without Shepard in there. Now there's another guy, Tavares King. I mean, he got a couple of targets, but he's doing nothing. He got the touchdown. He caught. He got the miracle touchdown last week. Got you 12 points. But I'm not. I guess he's super puntable in a GPP, but. Sterling Shepard, I'll take those 9 targets for 5,500 against the 49ers. And on the 49ers side, there's plenty of goodness too. We got to figure out, what some of these matchups are going to be. But Derrick Robinson, I mean, the problem with the 49ers is they get all these targets and they can't catch them. I mean, Derrick Robinson last week had 8 targets, 2 receptions. I mean, like, really? And the same thing for Marquise Goodwin. Like, at least he I think he actually had caught a bomb. But outside of that, 8 targets, 2 receptions. So this isn't an efficient team under Beathard. Now, I don't know if Garoppolo is going to play. I don't know what to make of if Garoppolo plays. But who I do like is Carlos Hyde and his 11 targets at the running back position per game. Or if you average out the last 3 weeks, he's averaging about 10 targets per game.
That is Christian McCaffrey, Andre Ellington-esque.
Yes, but tack on the fact that he's also getting 14 or so carries in the running game, and now
he's their goal line
almost
back.
like Le'Veon Bell-esque type numbers. So, and he does get the ball at the goal line, and he does put up numbers. He's put up numbers many times this season. Why not play Carlos Hyde against the Giants? All I need from him is to get 7 or 8 of those passing game targets, and I'm perfectly happy. If he does more than that, spectacular. If he gets me 10 or 15 carries in running game, wonderful. So I like Hyde a lot. I can't really figure out which pass catcher, but what do we know about the Giants? What do we know about them? Let's look at their research station numbers, right? Very poor against the tight end position. 22nd overall, and in years past they've been 31st. They've been as bad. They have a bit of a funnel defense to the tight ends with those high quality cornerbacks that they bring to the table. Well, San Francisco just lost a couple of guys last week, and the last man standing is Garrett, $2,500 salary on DraftKings, Selleck. Now, you might be cringing at the idea of Garrett Selleck, and that would be understandable. The guy has not seen more than 4 targets all season. His biggest game of the year was 1 reception. That's right. 1 reception. But
season high.
That's his season high so far. He had 4 targets last week, though. 1 reception. But, I mean, 4 targets, 1 reception.
It's about the right ratio. It's a 4-to-1 ratio.
That's in line with all of the other San Francisco pass catchers. They all tend to, underbeat it. It's a 25% reception ratio. So that
is, you want that second reception, I got to chuck it to you 4 more times.
Yeah. So I don't love Selleck for this massive upside that he brings to the table because it's pretty much 1 reception. But I do like the situation. I like that there's no other tight end. And I assume he'll get 4 or 5 or 6 targets here for 2,500, and maybe he'll catch one of them or 2. We've seen tight ends for this team do well. It just wasn't Selleck. It was Kittle and some other dude who was injured. There was 2 guys. Neither one of them were Garrett Selleck. Now they're both hurt. Who the hell were these guys? Greg Kittle and Hookatini. I don't know who the hell. It's like Cole Hookatini.
Yeah, you can't pronounce that name. Nobody can.
No, Hookatini. Right? So they had some other dudes, and they were doing okay. Not great, but Greg Kittle had a game this year where he had 21 points. So that happened once. And maybe it'll happen again. So I like the price on Garrett Selleck.
I'm hearing a lot of ifs, buts, and maybe.
It's like a bargain. I'm a buy. I love, it's like you ever go to the supermarket and something's on sale, and you don't even eat that shit.
You're not at sale at a supermarket. You're all the way out in the sticks at a flea market right now.
I know, but I'm just saying. You ever go to the supermarket? You know what I'm talking about. And
bring your coupons, maybe it's double coupon day.
You got a coupon with you, and something's on sale, and you're like, oh yeah, I really need some.
Apparently, with the San Francisco pass catchers, it's a buy 4 get 1 free ratio.
I'm like, I really need cans of heart of artichoke, for a $0.25 a piece. This seems like a really good deal. I'm gonna load up on this. I can't pass it up. And then I get home and I'm like, what the fuck do you do with a can of artichoke hearts? Like, what do you do with such a thing? This is straight in the trash. Why the fuck did I buy this? What was I thinking? But it was on sale. I couldn't walk by. And that's basically Garrett Selleck this week. Listen, you got a starting tight end on sale. He's in the clearance section, piled up with the expired hair dye and medicines that are long past their expiration date, and you're like, I'll take some fucking, I'll take 2-year-old Advil.
I can attest
for half
that
price.
Stuff sometimes pays the bills.
You know what I'm talking about? I'll take some 2-year-old Advil.
I know what
you're
talking
about. It might not get your headache fully taken care of, but it reduces it a little bit. And it's better than nothing. So basically, we're gonna call Garrett Selleck 2-year-old Advil. Expired medication. A bargain. Yeah, I'll take the day-old bread. Hey, listen, we'll toast it. You won't notice the difference. It's half price. Garrett Selleck is day-old bread. He's day-old bread.
He's day-old bread. He's canned artichoke. He's 2-year-old Advil.
Yes, past the expiration date medicine.
I can't think of... Golly, short of calling his mama fat, I
no,
can't see how you can insult the guy any worse.
I said nothing about his mother. She's a lovely woman.
That's awesome, though.
She's here right now.
I've never heard expired grocery references before in my life. You're killing me.
Gotta get it on sale.
That's outstanding.
You gotta get it. You gotta get this.
Gotta
get the half price special.
I promise you, you can listen to 10 other podcasts this week. You will not hear those references.
Actually, if it goes any way that my experience has been, by next week, everybody will be calling cheap players day-old bread. It's going to be a thing. And Taco will say that they've been saying that on Reddit for years. You didn't make that up.
Oh, the inside jokes there were amazing.
Yes.
Oh, see, I wish everybody was a VIP and could understand the humor that was in there because holy shit.
They never let me coin any phrase, nickname, or term. It's always, well, we've been saying that for years. What? How come I never heard anyone say it before? That's how it goes.
That's awesome. Oh, let's digress. Can we in my opinion, can we put that shitty game to bed? The game I don't like, but the
love
game
that
you
game.
like.
That's a good game. Don't put it to bed. Day old bread, man. Toast it up. Put some butter on it. Who's gonna know the difference?
Man, you're not even shopping at Big Lots. You're shopping at the stores that buy from Big Lots and sell it. That's awesome.
Straight to the clearance aisle.
All right,
Sunday Night Hammer. Let's go.
First game of the prime time. New England Patriots at Denver Broncos. The Pats go into Mile High with a 7.5 point road total, 46.5 point game total. Golly, going up into the mountains and taking in almost an 8-point spread. That just tells you what Vegas feels about Denver. What are you seeing on, I guess, prime time? Are you really taking a bunch of the Pats seriously? I mean, I think we should, right?
Yeah. Denver's a team on the quit as well. Who's their quarterback?
John Elway. Oh, sorry.
Brock Osweiler. The worst quarterback in the league. So
Elway can't pick quarterbacks, apparently.
Brock Osweiler may be worse than Beathard. That's the level of bad that he is.
That's like 3-day-old bread.
Yeah. Brock Osweiler is moldy bread. You can't even use it. You can't even eat it. Like you can't toast it up. It doesn't fix it.
It'll put you on the shitter.
Yeah. So he's that bad. So I mean, anything to do with now it's funny because the Patriots are so porous defensively that you'd be like, oh well, is there anything we could do with this Denver offense here? And there isn't much. I mean, I guess Emmanuel Sanders is almost a quarterback-proof player. He did okay under Osweiler last year, and I think they can deliver him the ball. I'm not a Demaryius Thomas fan at this point. He's had 2 years of not being good. At some point, you have to believe that he's just not good anymore. So I believe it. I believe it. It's fine. Sorry it took me so long to get on board with that. I apologize. But he's just not good. And I mean, I think they should bring back Simeon. He seemed better than Osweiler. I don't even know what the hell the Broncos are doing here. But
Paxton Lynch might be better.
I don't see a high-scoring game. I think that if you look at the DVP numbers, the most standout number, because Denver obviously has that good now, again, Denver quit last week. The Broncos quit at the Eagles. And that's where Alshon Jeffrey went bananas. The Broncos just quit. They stopped playing, and all of a sudden the no-fly zone sort of opened up, and it was a fly zone again. I mean, the Jets were passing, and the Eagles were just going crazy on them. I think I lean more towards who they have traditionally been, and Denver at home I think will be a team that will stop the outside wide receivers for New England. And
he's gonna smash.
Gronk is definitely going to be doing some smashing because, Cook, outside receiver, he's going to have a tough matchup.
You're making me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry.
I happen to have.
Is that Hulk smash?
Yeah, I actually have the toy in my basement.
I'm not surprised at all that you have that toy in your basement.
I wanted him to say Hulk smash, but
I am not surprised at all that you have a collection of toys in your basement. No. I'm sure there are more than one action figure from your youth there.
I'm staring. This will probably embarrass everybody, but I'm staring at 2 of those Hulk gloves that when you bang them together, they make the smashing noises. The one toy that I had where you push his belly button, he goes through the voices, and then a whole bunch of, because I have a daughter, I swear, you've seen her, so you can attest.
She's
a
real.
Whole bunch of dress-up doll clothes that she outgrew about 12 years ago.
It's real.
It's not me. It's not my collection of doll dresses in the basement. I promise everybody. I have a daughter. I do.
Nice. It does not surprise me at all that you have old action figures in your basement. Not in the slightest. But anyway, yes, I do see some Gronk smashing going on here because that's naturally who you would expect Tom Brady to go to, and Tom Brady's not the type of quarterback that doesn't take what he's getting from the defense. He can read defenses really well. I like these situations because it's more predictable. A quarterback like Tom Brady, he is a master of knowing who's open, where to go, where the matchups to exploit are. And he knows that the outside corners for Denver are very, very good. And so your Cooks, I don't think Hogan's going to play, so I think you might get Amendola. And I'm not sure really who else they put on the outside for the Patriots at this point, but no one that they throw to very often. I also don't love the smash mouth running game. That doesn't work all that well against the Broncos, unless you break them and they quit. But, I mean, Deion Lewis seems to be the all-purpose running back at this point. You have James White, and you have Gillislee, and you have Ricks Burkhead, and it's a whole shitstorm, really, of too many people and no focus. I hate them all. This is going to be a very weird primetime slate, to be quite honest with you, because I don't see a single viable running back on on these teams, either of them. I mean, you're not playing C.J. Anderson. It's just not a good play, even though the Patriots can't stop anyone. So, I mean, Brady to Gronk. Gronk, if you can afford him, is in a really great spot this week. I love Gronk. I love Gronk every week, but just as a person, I want to be friends with him.
Nice.
He doesn't feel the same. I tweeted him.
Well, no, he's not returning your phone calls.
No, he doesn't return my tweet. No, someday. But
there you go.
Yeah, but seriously, yeah, Gronk's in a great spot. I mean, this is a tight end pass funnel defense. You have the best tight end in the league. What's more to say? You can't really trust the other guys. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than the spread predicts, outside of like a complete thrashing. I don't really see Denver doing a whole lot. Again, unless maybe they change up something, they go to a different quarterback, but with Osweiler under center, he's just so limited. Remember Osweiler last season went to New England with the Texans and put up a big fat 0 in a primetime game.
Good Lord.
So, because we're not going to be playing much of that one, who do we got on Monday night for the second leg of the primetime?
Well, looks like it's the Miami Dolphins at the Carolina Panthers. And the interesting part about that one, besides the putrid 40-point total, is the 9-point spread on Carolina, which, if you believe Vegas, actually makes some Carolina Panthers playable. Dare I say?
Don't do it. Don't.
You see where I'm going with this one? Do you think I'm gonna say on primetime slate that Cam Newton is actually playable?
Oh, Cam Newton is definitely playable.
There we go.
I thought you were going to say Jonathan Stewart. I thought you were going with Johnny Stewart. And I'm like,
No. No, you would think 9-point spread. You'd think all that, but it seems like Christian McCaffrey was finally the mang out there in Carolina country. So maybe there's a little bit of left.
Jay Stizzles fumbled twice last week and just made a complete shit show of himself.
Might have been the changing of the guard.
Possibly. Let's see what our man Christian McCaffrey did as far as carries up the gut. 15.
There you go.
Last week, not as many receptions, only 5.
Christian Stew.
Jonathan Stewart was just basically giving up fumbles last week. That was the beautiful thing. He lost 2 fumbles, and hopefully, maybe lost a little bit of the confidence of the coach. If you're going to give it to a guy who's averaging 1.9 yards per carry, the least he could do is not fumble.
Just fall on the ball.
Dude,
just fall on the ball.
Ron Rivera had a talk with Jonathan Stewart. He's like, listen, dude, you've been shit all year. You're averaging 2.8 yards per carry on the season. You really want to fumble twice in one game? That's how you're going with that? That's the way you wanted to go? Because I'm trying to keep you here on the team. You're my boy. You're dating my daughter. Something. I don't know why the hell he's still on that. I assume there's something going on there.
You're dating my daughter.
He's got something over him. You know, you've got blackmail material on me. But yet you fumble twice. Like, why are you still
here? I really
here?
don't want that YouTube video getting out. So
no, yeah, like you have it. Yeah, that's right. He's got a YouTube video of Ron Rivera, like I don't even want to say. I'm not gonna lower this with this podcast with a news item regarding CK Lewis.
Save it for the last game of the entire week to say, yeah, let's keep it classy.
I'm not going to mention Louis CK's activities. You can look that up on Google because I'm not going to say a damn word about it. But seriously, you're like literally looking that up. Yeah, Louis CK. After the podcast, look it up.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, look it up. Look, he was in the news today. So anyway, low game total, but this game's actually fairly interesting. So yeah, I mean, Miami doesn't have anyone who could stop anyone. So finally, it's a good week for Devin Funchess. You got Curtis Samuel, you got Christian McCaffrey, and Cam Newton. All of the Panthers' weapons are in play. And certainly in the prime time, I think I'm going to be verging on very heavy exposure to the Panthers team. Miami, on the other hand, not so much. Matter of fact, very little indeed. Nothing I like about Miami here, other than obviously you have the cheap running backs, and in that primetime slate we actually need to get 2 viable running backs. So I think you're going to have to potentially make a choice between Drake and Williams. I'm probably leaning Williams because he seems to be thrown to more often than Drake, who seems to be the...
You wouldn't play Belichick roulette with that second running back? You trust the Miami running backs more?
Yeah.
Because that's a tough... For those silly GPPs on that 2-game slate where something random, really weird going to happen, I'm wondering if I wouldn't throw the dart at the Jonas Gray and hope that it hits.
Not Jonas Gray. Not Jonas.
Well, he's long gone.
James White.
I mean.
I mean, yeah. But I know what you mean. But it could be a James White. Yes, I could see. I don't see the Patriots having a lot of success running up the middle against the Broncos. Again, this is unless. All right. I'm going to get into something a little bit more advanced here. Low probability outcomes.
Stupid people sign off with me. We're going to let Kevin take it for a little while. Follow me over here to the corner.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about these games and we try to analyze them from a what's more likely to happen scenario. But there are low probability scenarios that you could look at as well. And in certain low probability scenarios, other things go along, and there's all these tie-ins. So the low probability scenario that you're referring to is, okay, the Patriots are beating the shit out. They break the Broncos. The Broncos basically quit. Now, late in the game, they're running up the gut, and they've broken through what is an impenetrable wall of Broncos run defense normally, especially up the gut. People, Melvin Gordon had a good game. Week 1. In the passing game, they tend to... Melvin Gordon's good game was receptions. It's very rare outside of that Orleans Darkwar Giants game. So it's happened. The Giants went there and they broke them. And it's weird that it was the Giants that did it. I still don't know. Football's weird. Football's crazy. You never know what's going to happen. And that's why in GPPs sometimes you got to go for these low probability scenarios. So in the scenario where the Patriots break this Broncos defense, they basically quit. Now they're not really stopping the run up the middle like they used to. Now they bring in, Dion Lewis. The problem is it's double low probability because the Patriots will not lean on a single running back. So, here we are thinking, yeah, we got it. They're breaking. But, now they're bringing in Rex Burkhardt and you have Gillislee all of a sudden is in there, and you have Dion Lewis. No one is in it enough. The only guy I would really be interested in playing is maybe James White, because I think if you're going to attack the Broncos defense, he's probably the guy you attack them with. Use James White. he's the guy because he's not going to run up the middle. It's via the pass, and their quality corners aren't going to be placed on the running back. Instead, he'll get matched up with a linebacker, and therefore it's this matchups to exploit situation with the Patriots outside wide receivers being occupied by quality corners and sort of taken out of the game. The passing game will funnel through the tight end position, but what favors the tight end position also favors the pass-catching running backs. So just as good as the tight end is the pass-catching running back, and therefore you get your situation where James White becomes more involved, and he has the potential to have the big game. So in the 2-game slate, I will have some White, for sure, James White. I'll have pretty much an all-in on Christian McCaffrey. And then I'm going to have to choose between these Miami turds, which is going to be the guy that can deliver at least somewhat of a reasonable score at the running back position. And I think it's going to be Damian Williams, who I favor, but, it could be either guy. And obviously, if we're talking just to finish up on this particular game, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, they're all playable. I don't think they're going to have big games. Cutler sucks. He sucks worse on the road than he does at home. And the Panthers defense is good, and they're allowing only 7 points per game to quarterbacks. They're not allowing shit to running backs. WR1, 23 points. Not points. They're ranked 7th. I'm sorry. I keep saying points per game. They're ranked 7th to quarterbacks. Ranked 3rd overall against running backs. Not as great against wide receiver, the WR1 position. So, you can get them there. And again, then maybe that's Jarvis Landry, but I'm not getting, or I think it's really Devontae Parker, but I'm not going crazy on any sort of Miami pass catchers. They're just not that good.
Not without a quarterback that can't get him the ball.
Exactly.
That's the big part about it. I mean, Landry's been all right, but again, tough matchup, shit quarterback throwing at him. He's better off almost with Matt Moore throwing at him. What can you do?
It's not even funny. I mean, I think this team is just terrible. Cutler's not good. I love Carolina defense. I like the Patriots defense in that slate as well. But Carolina's
even though they're
chalk.
porous.
Yeah, because it's the Broncos and it's Brock Osweiler.
Right.
Carolina will be the chalk. No question. 80%.
That's what makes the Patriots more intriguing.
The Patriots are in this intriguing contrarian GPP. I can't see using the, I guess maybe you can have a 5% share of the Broncos too. Can't see using Miami. And as turnover prone as Cam can be, it's Miami. Can't use them.
Good enough for me.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, thanks for letting me jump on with you a little bit late. Sorry that we had other things get in the way, but glad that I got to kind of jump on and chat the slate a little bit with you. That was good stuff. I appreciate the pause there.
No doubt. Good times, and I will be back later this week for our DFS Army members with the VIP podcast, where I'm going to go a little more into specific players that I'm playing at different positions and different stacks that I'm going to be using, and who I like for cash and who I like for GPPs and all of that. So stay tuned for that coming up tomorrow night, Friday. I can't say tomorrow on a podcast. That will be released at some point late night on Friday night, and it will be available obviously all day Saturday and Sunday. And for DFS Army VIP members, make sure to check into our community Slack forums for a Sunday morning note, which I will always post Sunday morning with my latest, greatest thoughts for the slate. That's where I'm hopefully going to have more clarity on a lot of these injury situations and whatnot. And of course, for anybody who doesn't know, we are continuing to run our fantasy draft promotion, where everybody who is signed up under the DFS Army banner for fantasy draft, every week that you play, every single day that you play in a paid contest, you get an entry into a drawing for a $250 ticket to a Carolina Millions qualifier. It's worth $250 the entry, and the winner gets a $90,000 ticket to the live Carolina Million Finals for fantasy draft. If you are not signed up for fantasy draft already, go into DFS Army, grab our fantasy draft link, use that, sign up. It's all automated. I will be doing the live drawing for that ticket at around 11 a.m. Sunday morning. So we haven't had that many entrants. We've only been seeing, 50 or 60 or 70 entrants the last few weeks. It's so winnable. You get into this big contest, and if you win it, we're talking life-changing money. So that's how we do in the DFS Army.
Let me introduce. Let me say one more thing for those that stuck all the way to the end. Number one, if you're not a VIP, use coupon code 20OFF. 20-OFF. That is the coupon code that discounts us down 20% for the life of your membership. That is a very, very key piece of information for everybody that made it to the very end of the podcast. My gift to you. For everybody else, Kevin, I just want to thank you personally for putting those Sunday notes in at the end of the slate in your channel. That alone is one big reason people should be signing up for the VIP program inside DFS Army. I've been with you for 3 years. I still pick up stuff on those Sunday notes at the end, right there before lock, when you've accumulated all of your information. A pivot like a Fournette or something happens, or a Zach Ertz is out or something like that. Boom, you're automatic. I see Twitter go nuts on Sunday morning when I'm in my coaching channel kind of helping guys out. And the first thing we did last week is we dropped everything, and I just sent everybody, I said, go to Geeks Speak, go over there, pivot your lineups, make your shit happen. We're done here. It's an hour and a half early. It's huge, and I've seen it for 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row here where you've been doing that, and I think it's great. So mega value added to the membership.
The last week, if you read the Sunday notes, man, we got on T.Y. Hilton, we got on Jacoby Brissett. Let's see. I'm reading
Burton
it here.
had a long touchdown.
Yeah, Wilson.
Quite a few.
I called out Wilson, Smith, Dak, QB, Newton. I mean, it was pretty good stuff. So, yeah, I can't read through the whole thing right now. But, yeah, it was good.
Huge value added. It's worth the price of admission. If anybody's on the fence and they're still listening to us talk a little bit about the specials, the coupon code 20OFF, or the added value of those tidbits that are private to VIPs only at the end of the slate or at the end of the week when we've done all of our prep and we're right before lock, and then something happens, bang. Keith does it in NBA every day. You do it on Sundays in your own channel for NFL. So it's something that people should definitely be paying attention for.
Absolutely. And that's it. I'll be back. Like I said, tomorrow with the VIP podcast. So looking forward to that. And I will see everybody in the lobby. Let's make that money.
See you, Kevin.
Thank you for listening to the DFS Army podcast. Join the DFS Army today and gain access to our private Slack chat, where you can chat with real DFS pros and coaches, as well as other DFS Army members with winning track records. Also included in your membership is access to our premium articles, DFS Army weighted projections for every sport we offer, from NFL to MMA. Weekly player picks and cheat sheets, the strategy vault of timeless concepts, and the DFS Army Domination Station, a truly state-of-the-art lineup optimizer, offering your personal projections or ours. The DFS Army membership is the best value across the industry. Join today and get 2 free ebooks, as well as the secrets to unlocking a new level to your game.